ตามเรามาเถิดเหล่าชาวประมงทั้งหลายยกแบกกางแขนของเจ้าแล้วทุกคนจงตามเรามาพระเยซูเจ้าทรงดำเนินตามชายทะเลและเห็นชาวประมงผู้บากบั่นทำงานจำเจเอ่ยตรัสกับทุกคนรวมทั้งพวกชาวทะเลจงทิ้งทรัพย์สินบ้านช่องแล้วจงตามเรามาจงตามเรามาเถิดเหล่าชาวประมงทั้งหลายยกแบกกางแขนของเจ้าแล้วทุกคนจงตามเรามาผ่านด่านภาษีเห็นเลวีนั่งอยู่ข้างในตรัสให้คนทั้งหลายคนดีใสไม่ต้องการยาคนป่วยนั้นหากเล่าที่ต้องการรักษาแล้วตรัสแก่เลวีจงตามเรามาจงตามเรามาเถิดเหล่าชาวประมงทั้งหลายยกแบกกางแขนของเจ้าแล้วทุกคนจงตามเรามาโอ้ในวันนี้องค์ชีวิตทรงตรัสเรียกเราตอบองค์พระเป็นเจ้าว่าเราจะติดตามไปรับใช้ด้วยใจจริงจนกว่าชีวาสลายด้วยว่าเราถูกดลใจให้ติดตามพระองค์มาจงตามเรามาเถิดเหล่าชาวประมงทั้งหลายยกแบกกางแขนของเจ้าแล้วทุกคนจงตามเรามาจงตามเรามาเถิดเหล่าชาวประมงทั้งหลายยกแบกกางแขนของเจ้าแล้วทุกคนจงตามเรามา ชิญชาวเราถวายวันทาท่านนักบุญอันฝนโซชนทั่วทุกแดนต่างโห่ร้องชัยโยสองสรรเสริญบูชาที่แห่งใดขาดซึ่งความรักลอยลดลาวิญญาณท่านโปรดวิงวอนขอพระเมตตาเพื่อความรอดด้วยเธอทางชีวิตมืดมนท่านได้เอื้อเอ็นดูสอนหนทางให้รู้พระทรงกู้ไทยเราเชิญชาวเราถวายวันทาท่านนักบุญอันฝันโซชนทั่วทุกแดนต่างโห่ร้องชัยโยสองสรรเสริญบูชาที่แห่งใดขาดซึ่งความรักลอยลดลาวิญญาณท่านโปรดวิงวอนขอพระเมตตาเพื่อความรอดด้วยเธอโลกล้วนความทรมานท่านสถานพระบรรเทาในพระบุตรพระเจ้าความรอดเราบริบูรณ์เชิญชาวเราถวายวันทาท่านนักบุญอันฝนโซชนทั่วทุกแดนต่างโห่ร้องชัยโยสองสรรเสริญบูชาที่แห่งใดขาดซึ่งความรักลอยลดลาวิญญาณท่านโปรดวิงวอนขอพระเมตตาเพื่อความรอดด้วยเธอ ตามเรามาเถิดเราชาวประมงทั้งหลายยกแบกกางเขนของเจ้าแล้วทุกคนจงตามเรามาพระเยซูเจ้าทรงดำเนินตามชายทะเลและเห็นชาวประมงผู้บากบั่นทำงานจำเจตรัสกับทุกคนรวมทั้งพวกชาวทะเลจงทิ้งทรัพย์สินบ้านช่องแล้วจงตามเรามาจงตามเรามาเถิดเหล่าชาวประมงทั้งหลายยกแบกกางแขนของเจ้าแล้วทุกคนจงตามเรามาผ่านด่านภาษีเห็นเลวีนั่งอยู่ข้างในตรัสให้คนทั้งหลายคนดีใสไม่ต้องการยาคนป่วยนั้นหากเล่าที่ต้องการรักษาแล้วตรัสแก่เลวีจงตามเรามาจงตามเรามาเถิด
Liquid perseverance in for all the villagers who joined the session here and also online to reflect upon the perseverance in our religious life and also to see how we can be persevere in the world today. And you mentioned on your topic about a fragmented world, so it's a very interesting topic for all of us to listen to. And now we welcome our General Superior for the Rogério Gomes for this afternoon session.
Good afternoon. I will test your perseverance in this afternoon, especially after lunch and you need. The topic is liquid perseverance in a fragmented world. This topic is interesting topic because this test, I produced this test. Our efficient Secretary Provincial give a copy for you, and my presentation has something different, but it's in general the same. I add something in my presentation because I want to continue to reflect about this. For me, until have sexennial, I want to put my finger in this wound. And I think it's necessary. This is a phenomenon in the consecrated life, but I think we need to talk about this. The theme of perseverance aroused my curiosity because of my work in the General Council of the congregation. Every year, we analyze various cases of desertion from the consecrated life, from the simplest, such as a request for absence, to the most complex, such as resignation from the congregation or laicization. It's not an easy phenomenon to analyze because it is not a specific reality of the consecrated life, but a postmodern human being who cannot remain faithful to his commitment to the end. Often, it is not even the person who is to blame, but the organization of the world today. The current context must therefore be considered, although it is only part of the answer. For example, here I touched some points, but for me, reflecting about this topic, my questions, some questions, for example, the incidence of the culture in the perseverance, for example, no? The question, the influence of the postmodern world in this question, the influence of the media, for example. We have many aspects to be considered. When I wrote this text, I received many feedbacks, interesting. And this text was used for a conference to the thesis in the Gregorian. Because it's a provocative theme. On March 27, 2020, the Congregation for Institutes of Consecrate Life and Societies of Apostolic Life published the Gift of Fidelity and the Joy of Perseverance guidelines. After reading the dicastery's text, I decided to write Liquid Perseverance in a Fragmented World. I received a lot of feedback on this text. This text will be the base for this presentation, although I have added some new elements and removed others. For example, in the original text, I do some statistical analysis, no? But here, no, because I need new dates, etc. But it is interesting use statistics in this case. Some theories that shed light on this reality. Various philosophical, psychological, and sociological theories seek to explain the reality of today's world from multiple points of view. The metaphors, the illusion of the end, the simulacrum, pluralism, and the cries of meaning, the society of the spectacle, of the tardiness, and the transparency, the society of individuals and self-consciousness, the era of emptiness, of the ephemeral, of the twilight of duty, of the weak thought, and the liquid modernity, liquid love, liquid life, liquid fear, liquid times, liquid art, and life in fragments. This is Bauman, the last one. Are attempts to understand the fragmented world in which you live. Here, for example, many authors, this is in Portuguese, but it's possible to find these books in another language. What you are experiencing is, in fact, is a crisis of personal, collective, and institutional identity. Who I am? How do I relate? What do I expect from institutions? Faced with the impact of social and technological change, the individual has to reinvent himself at every moment, and there is no time to mature his options. Everything today is old. For example, I open if I go a website, I open this page, and after 1 minute we have this page change. Means the news is old. Yes. This is interesting. In a way, the context itself forces him to do so, and it becomes a question of mimetics and survival. To cite an example, in the past, a person entered the world of the workplace, accumulate experience, create relational links with other colleagues, and certain stability, and formed his family in the context of this work. Often, his children ended up choosing their parents' profession because of certain identification. My father is a professor, I am professor. My father is a doctor, I am doctor. My father is a farmer, I am farmer. No? In today's context, in addition to the requirements of experience, competence, and updating, durability in the workplace is very short in the interest of the system, because for the system is interesting. And to survive, the subject has to position himself in other jobs, taking away from time spent living with his peers, family,
friends, and the possibility to think about fundamental choice in order to mature them. In this sense, the current situation, with all of its advanced favor superficiality, since the individual is attached to a web of relationships so complex and guided by speed and efficiency that
while he matures chronologically, he can remain immature at the level of the fundamental and last options. For example, I know some guys, these guys have, for example, 45 years old, but his mentality is like an adolescent, 20. We have a gap, the chronological age, and this is no correct term, but mental age, emotional age. It's very interesting. For example, in Italy, we have a phenomenon we call mamoni. Mamoni means that guys, they stay with the family until mature age, for example. And they live together with the fathers, and the fathers help them. This is a phenomenon, interesting phenomenon. Some years ago, Giuseppe Tacconi researched the various authors who tried to explain the crisis in religious life. He warned that all readings of the crisis have their limits and cannot give an answer in themselves. They should be read together and with a mentality and attitude of openness. He distinguished 6 interpretations. These interpretations to help us, but to answer all questions. For example, another question that I have, how is the incidence of the memory in our questions about perseverance? For example, the new generations. In the past, it was common, for example, the grandfather tell the stories about the last generations. Today, if you ask for a child, who is your grandfather? I don't know. We are losing the memory. It's not, it's interesting, the affective memory is because this phenomenon of the new technologies, because Today we need some information. I Google. The information don't remain in our reflections. And especially in the context, for example, our tradition, religious traditions, for example, Christianism, Buddhism, and we count the stories. No? Christianism arrived until now because we receive many stories. Someone count to us this. Ethical interpretation. Because of the crisis of values in society and the indifference to the gospel and religion. Religious life as an affirmation of the preeminence of God and as consequence becomes impractical and impossible. Added to that is the loss of the radicality of consecrated life, and it is becoming secularized and less spiritual. For example, many authors said, in the past, consecrated life is very spiritual, but after consecrated life passed in another direction, more social. No? It's sociological interpretations. The displacement suffered by religious life in the social and ecclesial context with the significant social transformations, especially those congregations with very specialist social works. Religious life loses its social relevance. This loss is due to the new realities of assistance such as Caritas and new models of church with greater participation of the laity, of NGOs or volunteers, and also because religious life adopts a logic separated from society and does not utilize networks. The church context provokes a marginalization of consecrated life that many times, by accepting so many parishes, consecrated life becomes a supplement of the diocesan clergy and also a security guarantee for itself. The decline in the number of the vacations and the aging of the members place the apostolates in crisis. Very old communities with few young members do not offer room for change because control is in the hands of the elders. Another element is the influence of transformations in gender relations with the religious life as religious women move to demand greater equality with the church. The difficulty of managing the passage from a model of religious life that is positioned in a relatively homogeneous context of Christianity to a model in an ever more complex and secular context is a challenge. For example, here some congregations with a specific charism, for example, care hospitals, for example, hospital or education. What's happened in this case? In the past, the religious life offered this service to the society, but the modern state arrived and opened these possibilities to the people. In this case, the religious life was marginalized. Or, in this case, for example, when this charism is specific, they don't have people to replace. Philosophical interpretations, psychological interpretations, the problem of self-realization and conflicts between self-realization and community life that generate disillusionment and crisis. The lack of realism in living a loss of contact with concrete reality, the experience of time, and a manic hyperactivism that often hides anguish, dissatisfactions, and pessimism. The fragility in the decision processes that are slow, fragile, and always postponed without confrontation and of projecting results in time and space. The problem of self-reference, the difficulty of getting out of oneself, and the impoverishment of relationships, the inertia, routine, and accommodation of what exists, the crisis of identity as religious persons. The how of being a religious person is no, but not the why of this identity. This crisis is not only that of individuals, but also of a collective identity. This crisis challenges religions to shift from a movement of simplification to that of complexity, with new dynamics and synthesis, and to bring together the different identities that they live as men and women, Christians, religious, citizens, and professionals. Historical interpretations. The transition between a past that no longer exists and a new one that is not yet envisioned. The question about liminarity. This does not mean the end of the consecrated life. To survive in time, many forms of religious life changed over time. Many disappeared, others were born. To progress, it is necessary to renounce a deadly fixism. It is essential to have the memory of the past to live in the present time more conscientiously. Theological interpretation. Some authors insist that the crisis is a lack of deepening in the theology of consecrated life and the difficulty of passing from a static theological model to a dynamic evolutionary model, capable of entering into dialogue with contemporary culture. Others insist on the loss of the foundational reference, Jesus Christ, and the emergence of an ecclesial model that passed from the centrality in Jesus to social practices. This is very interesting. I don't know here, but I know in some parts of Latin America, congregations, they have, for example, social works, etc., is empty. But some contemplative and conservative congregation is full. For me, it's related the world in constant changing, and at the same time, the question about personal security. Others present the crisis as a descent, weaknesses, loss of significance of participation in the cross of Christ. Another interpretation, pragmatic interpretation. Consecrated life was built on the model of consecration and mission, the being for. Secularized society has put in crisis the forms, mediations, and instruments that were developed in different historical contexts that today no longer respond to the challenges. The inability of religious life to communicate ad intra and ad extra, the lack of global projects, and the post-conciliar renewal did not reach everyone and remained a model of the past. Self-criticism was not an element reflected in the elaboration of the new models, was demolished without development. The question about referentiality, the church is during until Vatican II. The church was an example of the auto-referentiality. It is today, we receive this influence, and for example, Pope Francis tried to remove this auto-referentiality, especially in the Roman Curia. It's not easy. That being so, theoretical reflections are essential to understand the phenomenon in a comprehensive manner. However, we can run the risk of seeing it only as a sociological phenomenon caused by the current situation that arrives in our communities, affect us, and we continue to follow life as spectators. The reality of the abandonment of consecrated life is a symptom of a broader crisis, which questions the different forms of life recognized by the Church. This phenomenon cannot be justified solely by referring to sociocultural causes, nor addressed with a sense of resignation, which led us to consider it as normal. It is not normal that after a long period of initial formation, or after many years in consecrated life, one decides to ask to separate from the Institute. This is part of the document, this document for the C.Ss.R. El Gift, El Don de la Fidelidad. This document is in English. This may be the time to touch our wounds and without looking for culprits, take history into our hands. And in this earnest, mature, responsible, restless, hopeful way, and with faith in the Lord of the harvest and shepherd of the flock, think about and address this reality in our communities. It is not a question of seeing reality from the perspective of the pessimism, but of the realism and the search for better solutions to respond to a real problem. For me, we need to talk about this. We need to talk about our perseverance. For example, as general government, every year, as I know, we analyze different cases. At the end, we have the media, we have more or less 55 cases during the year. For example, absence, we have claustration, conference, go to the diocese, etc. 55 person conference is a number to be a province. Every year we can't count about 55 conferences to work in the mission. This is very significant for us. And you need to talk about this in our community, about formations, etc. Community life. I look at our reality. In recent times, a large number of conferences, some very young, have left the congregation in various situations, requesting a leave of absence and exclaustration, and also passage to a diocese. From 2016 to the present time, analyze the documentation that comes to the General Council concerning absence, exclaustration, expulsion, leaves of absence, and serious crimes. We have the following data that should lead us to a sincere reflection without choosing scapegoats. I think it is important when you check the Officialia. Officialia gives a horizon for us, an overview, if you follow during the year. What happens to the conference who confront the reality of this encounterment with the style of the life and the mission, pastoral models no longer attractive to the conference and to the people of God, the lack of consistent formation that has not led them to the discernment before perpetual profession, the difficulty in dedicating a whole life to an ongoing project, the absence of spiritual life, community life that does not offer companionable and effective support, the lack of resilience in the working through community, conflicts and facing of difficult incompatibility of the congregational charism with personal gifts, the passage of the money to diocesan life and other institutes. This is many factors. These are points that should be reflected upon and discussed in our religious communities. Analyze the response received from the congregations, vice province, in the preparation for the 26th General Chapter. It can be seen that one of the most fragile aspects is linked to initial formation and even more so to ongoing formation. That problem persists. When the consultation of the last General Chapter, 25, the question about formation was a question and continues, this persists. But the situation persists because one of the themes offered by the 26th General Chapter for the reflection of the conference is about formation. Formation for consecrated life is entrusted in most cases to the novitiate as a panacea and a time of apprenticeship, especially for the contest related to consecrated life. Subsequently, attention is strongly focused on ministerial formation, doing, at the expense of consecration being. This is attention. Are you being formed only to be priest or to be made consecrate as Redemptorist missionaries? Being a priest is only a ministerial consequence of our consecration. First and foremost, we are religious. How can quality initial formation be guaranteed if there is no personal and community investment in ongoing formation? Another focus of tension and fatigue is community life. On the one hand, there is communitarism that stifles individuality, that watches over others' lives, authoritarianism, and on the other hand, there is almost a diocesanization and the weakening of the missionary body in which the individual is alienated from everything and everyone. How can we reconcile personal values and courage to balance the experience of our apostolic life and be a resource to strengthen fidelity and perseverance? There are conferences with many talents who are not taken into account by their superiors. There are others who close themselves to their talents and do not open themselves to service of the congregation, which is a call to develop new talents. It's another tension. Some conference is a star and realize the work, and this work is not linked with the congregation. How can the process of restructuring help us with this? This is some questions for us. Novitiate don't have obligation to offer all things about consecrated life. Is not only the period for this. It's part of our formation. As I said, novitiate is not a panacea. It's a time to reflect, to know the charism, the spirituality, etc. But this formation must continue in other periods of formation. Number 3, fidelity and the vow and oath of perseverance. The word fidelity, fidelitas, fidelitatis, has both a theological and anthropological content. Fidelity is linked to the act of faith in oneself, in God, and in the other person and institution. That is, the observance of the faith given to the faithful fidelis derived from fides, fede. Is he who observes the faith giving, which corresponds to the trust in the one in whom the faith has been placed. Therefore, it's a reciprocal act. In this sense, it's fundamental to ask ourselves if the cause of the abandonment of the institute are not linked to a crisis of faith. Faith in God, in the consecration itself, the mission, and its recipients. When a person consciously and courageously discerns to live, it's because he does not any longer find meaning in his consecration. The opposite is true and can be a problem both for the institute and for the people of God. Faced with the problem of perseverance In the early days of the congregation, Alphonsus instituted the vow and oath of perseverance. This fourth vow is a way of counteracting the current view of the transience and liquidity of commitments, especially those that require people to commit their lives to another or an institution. In this sense, the vow of perseverance is a sign to the world that it is possible to make lifelong commitments to those who have no one on their side. In this case, we commit ourselves to the explicit proclamation of the good news and the kingdom, and for this we devote our lives. To persevere is not to hold out in time chronologically until death. A confrere can have many years in redemptor's life and is not be persevering. There may be only a formal adherence to the institution as a form of survival, and not a lifelong commitment to the mission. Perseverance entails the whole being with its weaknesses and strengths and the willingness to give the best of oneself. Perseverance is a process in which the subject recognizes his weaknesses and potentialities and place himself before the world in a process of discernment and choice of significant values for his existence, giving meaning to his or her life. Perseverance is not a form of survival. It's a responsible response to living and to the choice we choose to make. The vow of perseverance has its essence Christ, who persevered in his mission until the end, giving his life on the cross. It goes beyond the daily routine through creative fidelity and conforms the person more and more to the mission of Jesus himself and the congregation. Only in this way does it make sense, the vow and oath of perseverance, by virtue of which they oblige themselves to live in the congregation until death. This is our Constitution 76. To reflect as missionary body, to reflect as congregation, to reflect as consecrated life. As I said, this is not a problem of our congregation. In the morning I said, many 2,000 people left the consecrated life, according to the C.S.R. And the two causes, they lost the faith and community life. This question is for us, for our reflection. Reflecting on this complex issue that affects not only consecrated life, but also marriages, friendships, and the labor world, we realize that the answers are neither obvious nor magical. The answers are the result of a birth experience that we must face together as a missionary body. Perhaps some indications can help us be more aware and start thinking concretely about strategies to optimize this situation. Below are some elements, as I say in the beginning, no? I want to continue to study this question. The first, understanding the cause of abandonment. I think it is we need to understand this in our formation house, for example. Each provincial, vice-provincial government and each formation house has an idea of the factors that led the person to live his way of life. It is important to discern what are the difficulties, the motivation or these motivations of the individual and also the incapacity of the institution in helping him. A coherent analysis is also willing to make an institutional self-evaluation. Why do we leave our formation house? Why do our conference leave us? How are our discernment process in our formation house? Do they help students to reflect on their vocation? How's our capacity for personal and community discernment? The question about discernment is very important. Investment in human and financial resource in the pastoral care of vocations. There are realities in the congregation where there are young people, but the province and vice province do not invest in conference to free them for this missionary work. It's a reality, I know. It is necessary to provide conference who have a feeling for the working with young people, or at least allow themselves to be guided into doing a good job. Today, more than publicizing the courage, it is necessary to understand who is the young person, his word, his wounds, his qualities, and his openness to make a lasting commitment. A vocation ministry that seeks out perfect young people is condemned to failure. In this sense, restructuring can offer significant possibilities of human and economic resource and solidarity. I entered in the seminary in 1994. When I saw the young men that enter in our seminar today, I am scared, because I say, wow, I am another generation, I am another time. Because it's very different. The world change fast. And it's interesting, another phenomenon, I don't know here, but especially in some place, and for example, in America Latina, when I went in seminary, 9% of my colleagues, I think it's 8%, they have a family as normal family. Today is contrary. 98% are provenient from the broken families. The situation change. And if our formation don't change, it's impossible to help these candidates. We need to think about our formation, because our formation is a key, is an instrument for them in the future. more participatory and discernment-oriented formation programs. The challenge of forming people today is enormous, and it is not an easy task. Dealing with people all the time, talking, listening, offering content, helping to discern, is exhausting, and a job that is not seen with the naked eye. Talking about the formators, they said, "Oh, formation is terrible because we work hard, but it's not possible to see the results." If I go to the missionary, missionary label, etc., I preach, I saw the people, but information, no. But formation is, to be formator is a mission. It's a very important mission. In the past, formation was a mass production. One entered the formation house, participated in the study program, lived the discipline, professed, and was ordained. Today, there is a double task, since the formator has to work with the formand in a personalized way and then return him to the broader context of the community and work with him from there. The present generations bring new questions to the formators that past generations did not have. Besides the personal and community work of the formators, it is important to rethink the ways of planning formation programs. Imposing a program in the formation house decided by the Secretariat of Formation without involving the formandi in this preparation can be less laborious but less effective. To involve the young people in the formation process is to believe in them and to make them subjects of the formation process, since they can give their opinion, bring their concerns about the world, about sexuality, about the affectivity components that need attention. How then can we reconcile the contents of formation which cannot be renounced so that young people can give their opinions, making them and their opinions important and the program more attractive? This requires a dialogical, formative process which listens, focuses on reality, on discernment, and prompts young people to more difficult tasks while taking them out of passivity and opening the world for them. For me, it's a big question. For example, we have a ratio formaciones. This ratio have many indications, and our formation house prepare these programs according to these ratio formaciones. But sometimes we offer to the students this content. But the question is, the students, that content is helpful them, or we are imposing some content, but don't ask for them, what do you think about this? I think the challenge today is create in our students the sense of belongings, participation, prepare programs for them. For example, okay, we need this line, we need this subject, these important topics to work with them, but engage the students in this preparation. For example, when I taught bioethics, I had a program for the faculty, but I left 4 hours in this class, and the 4 classes, for example, the students, they had a meeting, they choose the topics, and this, in 4 lessons, we working about these topics from this interest. Was very interesting because every year we have something new, but we continue, we don't lose the focus of the course. Reconcile missionary charism and personal gifts, self-realization. This is a very, very difficult task for the provincials. I know this. Throughout the formation process, the person must discern that the congregational charism persists in time, adapts, renews itself with the breath of the Spirit, and reads the signs of the times, but does not adapt itself to persons. It is very important. The charism don't adapt to Rogério. The charism is of the congregation. Otherwise, it would not respond to its mission in the church. The congregation's charism is not to take care of hospitals or education, which means that if the young person has this charism, he must be helped to find his way consciously and accompanied with joy because he has found his true direction. However, this does not mean that at a given moment, the major superiors, because of the necessity and a project that responds to the needs of the charism, do not entrust to the conference a formation in medicine or education or other areas. It is important that those in leadership have a vision and a broad knowledge of the conference and seek to reconcile pastoral work with personal gifts, with each as a challenge to help the formandi in their self-realization. The protagonists are often characterized by rigidity in negotiating the charisma and personal gifts. Different is the self-protagonism in which the individual makes his our life and identifies himself as the mission. La mission, C.S.R. The confrere who understands the service of the congregation, put his personal gift to use and fulfills himself without departing from the missionary body. It's interesting. A confrere, he is aware, he has the conscience of the consecrated life. He's able and say, I am available for this mission. I prefer this, but the congregation need me in this area. And I try to do my best. This is a kenosis. This is a destaco. Awareness of continuous formation. We must be humble and recognize that one of the deficiencies we have in the congregation is continuing formation. In the context of today's world, Basic formation in philosophy and theology is very little. It requires constant updating on our part and a continual updating of the awareness and interest that each one of us should have in keeping up with the challenges of the world and seeking the means to open different horizons to the themes that are presented to us daily. It's not about specialized formation. This is only one aspect of continual formation. It's about processing information into knowledge, knowing, reflecting, meditating, praying, to be used for life and mission. Ongoing formation is not just about filling us with content. It also has its spiritual and mystical dimensions. In general, the vice province offer annually a time of the formation for the conference. That is not always appreciated. I know many provinces offer, but conference said, it's not interest me. The lack of continuing formation causes us to give all the answers to new problems. This accommodates and leads us to love the pastoral work of maintenance. The continued formation will not give us all the answers, but it does teach us that if we do not have it qualitatively, listening is already a great answer. I said this in the morning. To disregard continued formation, it's at minimum a sin against poverty. If we want quality initial formation, we must be aware that continuing formation is fundamental not only for the formators, but also for each conference. Many conferences confuse ongoing formation with specialization. Ongoing formation goes beyond this because it's for life. Ongoing formation is the process that begins when we enter a formation house, and develops throughout our lives, from a personal, humanitarian, and provincial, vice-provincial point of view, is a dynamic of personal conversion, of understanding and deepening our consecrate as a discipleship response to the Lord who calls and commitment to his mission for the people of God. Therefore, it goes beyond intellectual and academic formation. It touches every area of our lives. It's so then the quality of our initial formation depends on the quality of our ongoing formation. For us, lifelong learning is not an afterthought in a context of so many crucial questions in different areas of people's lives. To take just one example in the field of the morality and bioethics, new family models, sexuality, etc. If we are not up to date, we are doing a disservice to the people of God. It's a question of personal and collective conscience as formators of conscience. Work on personal and group resilience. One of the weak points of our initial and continuous training process is the work of resilience and conflict resolution. In general, we are not trained for this. Most of the time, a simple problem that could have been resolved at its genesis through dialogue and understanding branch out and become more complex, generating a series of damaging personal and community consequences. Conflict is anthropological. For example, many sad situations that you receive in general counsel start in community. Small problems and become big problems. However, it goes through an educational process, learning and focusing energies towards the common good. Current coaching consultants have successfully worked in this issue in work environments, families, etc. Considering this reality, information house and religious communities can be a learning experience and also a significant contribution to the quality of community life. The question about resilience, we need to work this in our community. Question about conflicts. This present text has its limitations, especially as it may not respond to all the situations that are present. However, we must discuss all of these openly and clearly in our communities without fear, without pessimism, without prejudice, without accusations. And they say, for example, okay, they left, okay, go in peace. No, it's not the question. But why? Okay, if they discern and live the community for the common good, it's good. But we need to ask. Because ask for these questions is important to help us to be a major quality of our consecrated life. Without accusations and without indifference. Okay, he left, she left. No. Fidelity is an act filled with faith, perseverance, patience, the desire to do one best and to love God, the congregation, and God's people. Fidelity helps us to touch wounds with courage and serenity as surgeons who have to have the courage to open bodies, deal with pain, be persistent, accompany, and care. I think we need to, the virtue of this, to be surgical here, to be doctor here. Okay, during the surgery, you see, if these surgeons don't open the body, it's impossible to care. No? I think we need to touch in this question. Liquid perseverance in a fragmented world raises many concerns and should not discourage us. It's not to discourage us. It's to be better. As a missionary body, we have to take our story into our hands as a story of redemption. The first witness we give to the Redeemer as consecrated religious is to read and grasp our personal story as a story of salvation, of a story of abundant redemption. And this story of redemption is present the memories of our journey, the way, the discouragements, the weaknesses, the failures, the crosses, the fidelities and infidelities, the desire to do it well, and the daily resurrections that help us to persevere. We persevere because we have every day many small resurrections. To assume the story of redemption is also to assume the story of those who left and of those who continue to the desire to respond to the questions of the Spirit, which always reflect the true source of our charisma. For me, this topic is a topic to us to start to talk about. As I said, it's not to discourage us, but I think we need to reflect as congregation to move forward in different aspects, in different situations. For example, I think we need to reflect about our formation, reflect about our quality of our life in our communities. Is very important. About the quality of our pastoral service to the people. For example, a nursery, a doctor, every year they update. They have, here we have a school, no? Offering every formation, etc. We need this. It's not because, okay, you don't, it's not necessary to present a certificate for us, but our certificate is our conscience. Because we are formator of conscience. This is a question we receive this from Santo Alfonso. For me, is a topic to talk our heart, but it touch our community. Thanks a lot, and we have time to discuss, to questions, as in the morning.
Father David, you raise your hand, okay? And I saw it.
My next article will be the perseverance after lunch.
Thank you for highlighting and pointing out the vows of perseverance in a context that is quite striking and interesting. I always have the impression, or my personal understanding, with regards to the vow of perseverance, as it is very much, associated with what we do, or our postulate as Redemptorists. For a long time, and for me personally, perseverance is almost equivalent to being stubborn, persisting to do in what we do and believe in, or fighting to the end, and not giving up until we die as religious. But your presentation has highlighted in such an overlooked phenomenon, and the fact that many Redemptorist confreres have left us. And we have been facing this fact as a congregation for the past few years. You just reminded me about my own experience, that my very own confrere leaving me. And, during that time, he asked me, and the other also asked me, how do you feel? I honestly said, I felt betrayed, I felt like it is sad, that, we feel like we are fighting, we are on the horse of going to the war and battle, And the thing that, that saddened me is not that we are losing, but the thing that somebody who's fighting with me, turning back and leave me. And the fact that, it helped me not asking what's wrong with that person, but asking myself what's wrong with me and the community. What we have not done, to help him or to be there or to change the way we treated him or how we feel also responsible, the reason why he left us, That's part of me, I think. Thank you for highlighting this, phenomenal, and it's also helped me to reflect on this fact and how we deal with this phenomenon as a community. And I think, thank you.
Another example, practical, for example, when it's interesting in some case. In some case, when we have desertion, is a process, and this process starts in the initial formation. For example, I follow four cases, and these 4 cases is young conference, and this young conference left. But this conference start present the same questions. For example, in aspirants, the question persists in postulants, persists in novitiate, and novitiate he continue, dialogate, renew, and profess perpetually and ordain. The question is the same question. I think I understand, because it's not easy to. I was formator in the past, but for me it's the question of humanity to the other. In some situations, said, dear student, this life is not for you. And help this student understand. Sometimes it's not easy, the student is not want to understand, but depending on the process, sometimes this process is very strong. They have men fightings, etc. But I think you need formation, a discernment formation in this sense. And if you, okay, this situation persists, what's happening? Why? We don't answer and don't change this situation. This is the case. Another case, conference, do. Had an agenda, 1,000 marriages, feasts, etc. is a conference. The conference work hard, a lot, but always outside of community. Do. Don't pray in community, don't lunch in community, etc. Always outside. And consecrated life is talked about to being and not doing. But especially for us in Redemptorists, because we are apostolic congregation, it's very important, this question about being and doing. because if you do only, it's very complicated. For example, other case, when you analyze, we do the analysis, the first experience when that guy start with the crisis, stop the prayer. A spiritual life is he puts apart. The second, community. And after this, start the process, etc. This is interesting.
Any other questions, comments, feedback? Father Patrick, thank you.
How does a community be life-giving to a confrere when he goes for therapy because of an addiction and returns, but doesn't level with the community, and the community is lost in a way to reach out because it is not talked about in the community. And we understand the process the confrere goes through, but he keeps telling the community, respect the process, but we see no progress. And we see certain symptoms coming up, the same thing. And if we address these things, we feel that we are infringing on, the person would say, his space, not being respectful. But we are lost because we are not told, there is no framework, template on how we can be life-giving. Because I don't think it's a journey when he returns from therapy, it's a journey he takes alone. It's a whole community. But the shame and the embarrassment between him and maybe the community must be addressed and spoken about. Otherwise, we are in a horrible or funny space. So we are not being life-giving, and he feels this is time for him to find another way of life or another means to get out of the congregation, and blames the community for being overbearing or judgmental and not supportive when we do not know really how to support because we've not talked about it. So that's how do we be life-giving?
I think the questions, especially very important to the community, to be the first point, helpful Samaritan in this sense. It's important to understand the confrere. It's important to offer technical help in this case, and respect the confrere, but at the same time calls the confrere to the responsibility. Sometimes it's possible to find confrere, they are all the victims. They don't assume his responsibility for the situations. No? Sometimes it's okay, the community has the role, but the confrere has responsibility. Okay, I do it, and I need this help, etc. But sometimes it's easy to be a victim, to ask directly or ask for help. I experienced a situation 4 years ago when confrere This conference is very interesting conference, working hard in community, works very well, don't have difficult with others. But after some time, the conference start to disappear, the community. And after some month, someone said, okay, this conference has a relationship with a lady, etc. But the history has a sad end. But the question, the sad part is that one day one conference said, okay, I knew this situation. Okay, but if you knew this situation, this conference was in risk, why? If you don't have courage to talk to the conference, talk to the superior. Okay, this conference, I perceive this, my perception is this, is confidentially, could you help them? Because I have this information, And sometimes we don't take care in this case of our conference. It is questions for us to reflect.
Yeah, I know it's very difficult, right? Because it's both sides,
Yeah.
the community and also the particular kind of fair
Yeah.
that, struggling with certain issues. So it's
Yeah.
with both sides, the community, how the community members help that person, and also how open it for that person to share the problems or the struggle with the community and to be healed, as you mentioned in your topic. Father Apisit, okay. Getting more interesting.
I would like to change the topic a little bit because once I think I heard that you emphasize a lot on ongoing formation, which I believe that many units in the congregation don't do it properly, or maybe as individuals they might do it, but as a community it's not easy to organize ongoing formation for conference to come together because everybody seems busy all the time, and then we don't blame them because of their work and the demand of the work, especially those who work in the parish, and they have lots of duties and doing all this. And so as time goes by, ongoing formation looks good only on paper. It's only on the paper, it's only on the ratio, it looks good on the policy, on the conversation and everything, but really nothing happens. So I think this is a common concern, not only I think in our unit, but many units, and it's a very hard, I think, hard issue how to deal with this ongoing formation that make conference realize that how important that we need to update ourselves like doctors, like those professionals. They need to go and update themselves so that otherwise they will do disservice to the people of God.
Yes, for me it's a question about the responsibility, and for me, community, local community have good conditions to prepare. For example, if I work in an area, especially, for example, in that area you have many prostitution, addictions, etc. It's possible for the community to study this phenomenon. This is part of our ongoing formation because we are understanding this social phenomenon, that reality, and we want to search some answers or find some instruments to respond that question. It's very important. For me, ongoing formation is not only for example, an assembly, but daily in community, I think is possible. For me, is an exercise. Another thing is who is priority for us. The parish, okay, the parish is very important, but if you don't prepare, how is the content we give for the people of God?
Thank you. ครับ Can I share in Thai นะครับในสิ่งที่พ่ออภิสิทธิ์พูดก็ในฐานะที่พ่ออภิสิทธิ์ก็เป็นเจ้าคณะมาหลายสมัยนะครับก็ได้เห็นถึงความท้าทายของเรื่อง ongoing formation ซึ่งไม่ใช่เฉพาะสามเณร brother เท่านั้นนะครับก็สมาชิกทุกคนแล้วก็ในโลกที่เปลี่ยนแปลงอย่างรวดเร็วแล้วก็การอัปเดตตัวเองให้ทันต่อยุคต่อสมัยแล้วก็ต่อคำถามและการท้าทายใหม่ๆก็เป็นสิ่งที่จำเป็นคุณพ่ออภิสิทธิ์ก็ได้ถามนะครับว่ามีวิธีการหรือว่าเรามีมุมมองอย่างไรนะครับซึ่งมาธิการก็พูดนะครับในที่นี้ว่าก็ไม่เพียงแค่รอว่าเราจะมาแค่ assembly กันแล้วก็ค่อยมาอัปเดตบางหัวข้อใช่ไหมครับแต่มันสามารถเกิดขึ้นได้ในแม้แต่ใน community ของเราเองที่เราอยู่มันจะเป็นเชียงใหม่ขอนแก่นหนองคายมินบุรีก็แล้วแต่นะครับจะส่งเสริมให้เกิดการเรียนรู้แล้วก็การพัฒนานะครับด้านสิ่งที่มันเป็นประโยชน์ไม่ว่าจะเป็นทักษะความรู้ความสามารถหรือว่าอะไรที่มันใหม่ๆที่เราสามารถนำมาใช้ในการดำเนินชีวิตนักบวชแล้วก็การทำงานอภิบาลนะครับอันนี้ก็เป็นสิ่งที่มหาธิการนะครับได้เน้นแล้วก็ให้เรามองเห็นความสำคัญของการอัปเดตนะครับตัวเองเสมอAnother question or another comment?
Yep. I think you need to the question about priority. For example, I was professor and I live in a community of professors. It's interesting because our agenda and schedules is different, it's complicated. For example, I had a conference and I met this conference community one day of the week. Yeah, because the hours was different. But we had this sacred day. Tuesday is our day, is the day of community, every week. And in that day, the agenda was the community. Our community meeting, our mass, community mass, our Gaudiamos is the day of the community. It was a good solution. As that day, we find the space to talk about life. It was very interesting. I think we need to be creative in this sense. Don't lose the essential. It's very important.
Any other questions, comments? Sisters? Okay, if not, allow me just to summarize in Thai, for those who watch online about the topic this afternoon.
ในหัวข้อนะครับสำหรับนักบวชที่ได้เข้าชมนะครับในบ่ายวันนี้นะครับทางออนไลน์ก็ดีนะครับเป็นเรื่องของความภาคเพียรจนถึงที่สุดในโลกที่เปราะบางหรือว่าโลกที่มีการเปลี่ยนแปลงอย่างรวดเร็วนะครับซึ่งมหาธิการของคณะพระมหาไถเนี่ยท่านก็ได้เล่าประสบการณ์ให้ฟังนะครับว่าท่านได้ไปประชุมกับบรรดามหาธิการของคณะต่างๆแล้วก็มีการแบ่งปันข้อมูลนะครับว่ามีนักบวชประมาณ 2,000 กว่าคนที่ตัดสินใจลาออกจากชีวิตนักบวชตัดสินใจไม่เดินทางต่อในเส้นทางนี้ต่อปีนะครับไม่ต่ำกว่า 2,000 คนก็เป็นตัวเลขที่น่าตกใจเพราะฉะนั้นหัวข้อที่ท่านสนใจก็มาจากความเป็นจริงที่มันเกิดขึ้นหรือว่าปรากฏการณ์ของการตัดสินใจเปลี่ยนเส้นทางของชีวิตนักบวชทั่วโลกเนี่ยที่มีมากขึ้นท่านก็สนใจในเรื่องนี้เป็นพิเศษก็คือเรื่องของ perseverance หรือว่าความภาคเพียรจนถึงที่สุดนะครับนอกเหนือจากนั้นท่านก็ได้ให้ข้อมูลนะครับอีกว่าในเรื่องนี้เนี่ยหลังจากที่ไปสัมมนาประชุมกันกับบรรดามหาธิการทั้งหลายแล้วเนี่ยพบว่าก็เรียกว่า2ปัจจัยใหญ่ๆที่ทำให้นักบวชตัดสินใจนะครับลาออกไปประเด็นที่1ก็คือ lack of faith ก็คือหมดละความเชื่อไม่มีความเชื่อในเส้นทางสายนี้ละแล้วก็ประเด็นที่2ซึ่งเป็นประเด็นที่สำคัญอีกอันหนึ่งก็คือเรื่องของ community life ก็คือไม่มีชีวิตกลุ่มหรือว่าไม่รู้สึกหรือว่าไม่สามารถสัมผัสถึงชีวิตกลุ่มได้นะครับหรือว่าไม่สามารถสร้างชีวิตกลุ่มด้วยกันได้ก็ทำให้หลายๆคนตัดสินใจที่จะเลิกเดินทางในชีวิตนักบวชนั้นในอาร์ติเคิลที่ท่านได้เขียนขึ้นแล้วก็ได้นำมาแบ่งปันก็เป็นภาพสะท้อนของสถานการณ์ที่เป็นจริงที่เกิดขึ้นในชีวิตนักบวชปัจจุบันไม่เพียงแค่คณะพระมหาไถเท่านั้นนะครับเกิดขึ้นกับคณะนักบวชทั่วโลกและสิ่งที่จำเป็นและก็สำคัญอย่างยิ่งก็คือการกลับมาดูในระบบการอบรมนะครับหรือว่า formation ว่า formation ในยุคปัจจุบันจะตอบโจทย์กับบุคคลที่สนใจเข้ามาหรือว่ากระแสเรียกที่มีเข้ามาในคณะนี้อย่างไรให้เหมาะสมกับโลกปัจจุบันเราไม่สามารถใช้คำตอบเดิมที่อาจจะบอกว่ามัน outdated หรือว่ามันล้าสมัยแล้วมาตอบคำถามในโลกใหม่ในคำถามใหม่ๆในประเด็นใหม่ๆทำไมว่า ongoing formation จึงสำคัญเพราะเราก็จะได้อัปเดตตัวเองแล้วก็สามารถที่จะตอบสนองต่อไม่เพียงแค่งาน formation เท่านั้นแต่ตอบสนองถึงมิชชั่นทั้งหลายแหล่ด้วยนะครับอันนี้ก็เป็นประเด็นที่น่าสนใจแล้วก็ยังมีในเรื่องของการอยู่ด้วยกันในหมู่คณะนักบวชเมื่อมีใครสักคนหนึ่งที่ต้องเผชิญกับความท้าทายแล้วก็อาจจะมีการสั่นคลอนในเรื่องของกระแสเรียกอยากจะลาออกไปอยากจะพักออกไปตรงนี้ก็เป็นสิ่งหนึ่งที่ท่านก็เชิญชวนให้เรามองดูว่าสมาชิกด้วยกันได้มีการช่วยเหลือสมาชิกเหล่านั้นได้ดีเพียงพอแล้วอย่างไรนะครับเรารู้ว่าใครมีปัญหาอย่างไรมันมีทรายมีอะไรขึ้นมาแล้วเราได้ช่วยเหลือทันทีไหมเรามีโอกาสได้พูดคุยได้รับฟังปัญหาของสมาชิกหรือปล่อยให้เขาโดดเดี่ยวอ้างว้างแล้วก็ตัดสินใจออกไปอันนี้ก็จะเป็นปรากฏการณ์ที่เกิดขึ้นนะครับในหมู่คณะนักบวชก็เป็นสิ่งหนึ่งที่ก็คงจะให้เราได้กลับไปนะครับนำไปพิจารณาต่อเนื่องในหมู่คณะของตัวเองว่าเราจะมีวิธีการอย่างไรเราจะรับมืออย่างไรกับเรื่องเหล่านี้เพราะนี่เป็นสิ่งที่เกิดขึ้นจริงแล้วก็ perseverance ก็จึงเป็นอะไรที่สำคัญมากในโลกปัจจุบันว่าเราจะส่งเสริมสิ่งนี้ให้ตัวเราเองด้วยนะครับแล้วก็ให้เพื่อนๆสมาชิกได้มีความภาคเพียรในกระแสเรียกนี้อย่างไรต่อไปในโลกที่มันมีการเปลี่ยนแปลงแล้วก็มีความเปราะบางอย่างมากในโลกปัจจุบัน Do you understand?
You speak Thai very well.
Thank you. I just summarize your article. It's very helpful and is a great reminder to the situation today, the reality of the abandonments of religious life, and I share that in Thai. So the order who are watching our online session, will bring that back, and think about and reflect further.
For me, we need to reflect about this in different areas of our life, because it's not a phenomenon of the consecrated life, but when, for example, when we talk with the couples, for example, no? Or when we talk with the young men, for example, today about the question of the work. For example, today I work in this area, tomorrow I work in another area. Sometimes because the system, the actual system work in this direction, but sometimes because that person is not adapted in that work, is choosing. This is very interesting. I think is a good topic for us.
นี่ก็เป็นอีกหนึ่งหัวข้อที่เป็นหนึ่งประเด็นนะครับที่น่าสนใจที่บอกว่ามันไม่ใช่เพียงแค่ชีวิตนักบวชเท่านั้นแม้แต่ชีวิตครอบครัวก็เช่นเดียวกันนะครับในเรื่องของ perseverance เพราะท่านมองดูว่าปรากฏการณ์ทุกวันนี้มันเป็นเรื่องของ commitment นะครับมันเป็นเรื่องของเขาจะมี fidelity เนี่ยต่อ commitment ได้อย่างไรนะครับซึ่งอยู่ในบทสรุปอยู่แล้วนะครับ fidelity ก็คือความจงรักภักดีเพราะนั้น perseverance ก็อยู่ในนั้นความอดทน patience ก็อยู่ในนั้นนะครับเราจะเห็นได้ว่าถ้าสามีภรรยาไม่มี fidelity เนี่ยนะครับเขาไม่อดทนต่อกันไม่มีความภาคเพียรต่อกัน commitment ตัวที่ได้ให้กันไว้ก็ล่มสลายได้เหมือนกันเหมือนกับชีวิตนักบวชเรานะครับ commitment ที่เราให้กับพระเจ้าก็ล่มสลายได้ถ้าไม่มี fidelity แล้วก็สิ่งที่อาจจะเป็นหัวข้อย่อยที่อยู่ในนั้นก็คือ perseverance การภาคเพียรจนถึงที่สุด Any final word insights for us this afternoon
For me is, for example, when as general government we try to meeting our conference. It's impossible for us meeting personally 4,060 conference. But I think today it's possible to use some resources, and we are using these online resources. For example, we start with the formation. I realize this meeting with Formandi is a simple meeting, 1 hour and a half or 2 hours. This meeting starts with a prayer, formation house prepare a prayer. After that prayer, every student said his name. My name is Peter, my name is Paulo, etc. After that, we present a video. This video is more 20 minutes, and this video, every consultant present the reality of the conference. At the end, this student have a vision, overview about the congregation. And after this video, I give a message for the specific phase of formation, aspirants or theologate or novitiate. And after, I open to questions. It's very interesting. I receive many feedbacks. Now, in September, we finish with students. I met students of Africa, Latin America, America del Norte, Europe, now Asia. And in September, I publish a letter for the students. This letter is to encourage, to work this sense of belonging to the congregation. Sometimes, for example, especially for the new generations, okay, they start very well, but when the first difficulty, okay, I desist. No, don't give up. It's necessary to move forward. It's a letter to encouragement. Now in October we have I will meet the formators and superiors of community. In this sense, to encourage, to say, okay, we are work together, and everyone has responsibility in this area, but it's possible to animate, to encourage, etc. I think it's I insist in this to be present. And for me, I think if the at the end of the sexennial, we have a congregation more humanized, I am very happy.
Wow, thank you. It's a beautiful final word. อยากจะแชร์นิดหนึ่งนะครับในวิธีการทำงานของมหาธิการท่านพยายามที่จะคุยกับทุกกลุ่มนะครับเพื่อที่จะได้ข้อมูลไม่ว่าจะเป็นเนนทุกระดับนะครับแล้วก็ท่านก็ได้ข้อมูลที่เพียงพอได้รับฟังแล้วก็กำลังจะ publish ก็เป็นกำลังจะพิมพ์สิ่งที่ท่านได้นี่ออกมาเป็นจดหมายนะครับฉบับหนึ่งซึ่งจะเน้นในเรื่องของ sense of belonging ให้กับกลุ่มสามเณรที่ท่านได้รับฟังมาแล้วก็จะมีที่ท่านได้ออกตารางมาแล้วเนี่ยนะครับก็จะมีมีตติ้งเป็นออนไลน์มีตติ้งกับ formators ทั้งหลายเลยนะก็เพื่อเก็บข้อมูลจาก formator ทั่วโลกนะครับแล้วก็อันดับต่อไปก็จะมี secretary ด้วยนะครับคุณพ่อวิสิตเราต้องเข้านะครับเนื่องจาก secretary ทั่วโลกก็จะต้องมาให้ข้อมูลมาคุยกันดูนะว่าทำงานกันอย่างไรแล้วก็ยังมี rector นะครับของแต่ละบ้านนะครับท่านมหาธิการก็ใส่ใจที่จะรับฟังทุกๆจุดทุกๆด้านนะครับเพื่อที่จะนำมาพัฒนาแล้วก็ก้าวไปข้างหน้านะครับอย่างมีประสิทธิภาพจากข้อมูลที่ท่านได้แล้วก็สิ่งที่เราจะได้ยินแล้วนะครับท่านพยายามที่อยากจะเห็นว่าใน6ปีที่ในวาระของท่านเนี่ยเราเป็นฮิวแมนนะครับก็คือในมิติของความเป็นมนุษย์ได้รับการดูแลเอาใจใส่แล้วก็การอยู่ร่วมกันนะครับในมิติแบบนี้เนี่ยก็จะช่วยสร้างไม่ว่าจะเป็นชีวิตกลุ่มชีวิตนักบวชได้เป็นอย่างดีนะครับนั่นก็เป็นความหวังที่ท่านอยากจะเห็นในเทอมของท่านว่าเราสามารถที่จะทำทุกสิ่งทุกอย่างนะครับให้มันก้าวหน้าไปด้วยกันในความเป็นมนุษย์ของเราในมิติของความเป็นมนุษย์ให้ดีที่สุดเพื่อที่เราจะได้เป็นนักบวชที่ดีด้วยนะครับนั่นก็เป็นเมสเสจที่มีคุณค่านะครับให้กับพวกเรา So on behalf of the Redemptorist province of Thailand, I would like to express our gratitude for your presence and also your not lecture, your sharing, because you were professor and you told us that you love this job very much. It's just like you playing video game. I remember that you told us in Rome. And however you share your expertise and with these two topics, both in the morning and in the afternoon, that could inspire us and would help us to reflect further, especially in our unit, including South Korea, that how we can move forward, with these directions to reimagine our identity and also to be a true missionary of hope for the people of God. And in this afternoon also, we will take it for our further reflections about perseverance in our religious life and also in our community living. Thank you very much, and I hope we will have more time next to listen to another topic that you will prepare in the future that will also help us, the conference in Thailand and South Korea and even neighboring countries to listen to you once again. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, and I ask pardon for my English. For me, I improve my English. For me, it's a new challenge because I read English, etc. But I need to improve more, and especially for example, I survive Italian and Spanish and Portuguese, etc. And my next experience, I read French, but I need to speak French because Africa. I understand it. I think it's for me. I am restructuring. I am restructuring my life, and I said, okay, we need to move forward. Okay, if we have a challenge, we need to move forward in direction and improve and give our best.
Yes. So for those who want to become general, okay, learn more languages. Okay, small gift from the Redemptorist Province of Thailand for your presence and for your kind presentations to us. Thank you very much. So we have snack break, and you can enjoy sport, We have fitness room.